I just want to make a quick mathematical note about these null and alternative hypotheses before moving on. So remember, I'm going to assume the null hypothesis is true and then conduct some calculations to figure out how unusual my data is when I assume that null hypothesis is true. Remember that null hypothesis is going to be about the value of some parameter, and I need to assume that that thing is true. In order to actually do any calculations with it, I need to assume some parameter is some value. In other words, I need an equal sign in that null hypothesis. That's the only real mathematical symbol that I should be using there. So in that pregnancy example, I assumed that the length of pregnancy was not affected by the vitamin supplements. And therefore, the mean length of pregnancy for all women that were on this diet, not just the 25, that's why I'm using mu here instead of the sample mean, is still 281 days. All right, so I need there to be an equal sign in my null hypothesis. And my alternative hypothesis needs to contradict this. So, for example, if I had said that the mean was less than or equal to 281 days, well, now if it's 281, these no longer contradict each other. They could both be true. I can't allow that. So there's only 3 symbols that I can allow in this alternative hypothesis. Less than, that would certainly contradict equaling something. Greater than, that would also contradict. Or just doesn't equal. Like, I'm not sure if it's less or more, but it certainly is different. It's not the same. And that's actually what I would have used in this case. Right? So if my real hypothesis, right, like basic hypothesis without like fancy symbols and numbers, is the diet had an effect on pregnancy or it didn't have an effect. Well, this is it didn't have an effect. Having an effect just means it might be lower, it might be higher, so I would actually use a doesn't equal symbol here. But in any case, this null hypothesis realistically always has an equal sign in it, and the alternative will be one of these 3 things. Now, I know many of you, when you just didn't quite follow what I was doing, or whatever, maybe you just hate my videos and you prefer Khan Academy or whatever other outside resources you have on something like YouTube, will encounter something different than what I've just shown you. So for one thing, I'm a professional statistician. I do consulting work all the time. So I know what things should look like in journals, and so I'm not trying to get you to match up with what's in an intro stats textbook. I'm trying to get you to match up with what reality actually looks like. And a lot of those videos you might see are actually more geared towards making sure you pass like an AP stats exam or something. And so what they will do is they'll make these actual complements of each other. So if you had used a doesn't equal sign, well, the complement of that is equals. If you used a greater than symbol for the alternative, they would have you use a less than or equal to symbol here. And if you would have used less than, then the complement of that would be greater than or equal. So they would allow any one of these 3 symbols in the null hypothesis. I can tell you from a philosophical standpoint, this is never something you assume. That's just not how the calculations work. As we move forward, you'll see as we do the calculations, it's always an equal sign. And in modern research, they've understood this for a long time. In every book past an intro first semester stats textbook, they would always use an equal sign to represent that. So even though you may see this sometimes in null hypotheses, that is not how the modern world works, and it's not how anything beyond an intro stats textbook would work. So again, that's just kind of a warning. I'm never going to do that. That's just a warning for you, so that you don't think I'm lying to you that it's always an equal sign if you are to go use any of these outside resources, which you're always welcome to do. I feel like my videos actually help you directly get things done in the software kind of course that I've constructed. But of course, always feel free to use any outside resources you want. It's just that they will sometimes use symbols that I would never use and no statistician would really ever use in the past 40 years either.